What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GSD podcast. So this week's episode, guys, is extremely special. And we're having a Veterans Day episode. Our guest for this week is the Secretary of Veterans and Military Affairs, General Ben Robinson. General, you doing okay?
I'm doing great.
Right. Thanks for coming.
So you're the director of OMES?
That's this guy right here.
I'll just do an interview with you. I've heard your name.
He's a big
and
shot.
Never met you. So Steve Hart.
Yes, sir.
Right? Well, I'll be darned.
There we go.
Man, I'll tell you what, this is coming off on a high note here.
General, thank you so much for coming on the show. As I mentioned before, this is a Veterans Day episode. So first off, right off the bat, thank you so much for your service.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we'll dive in through this episode into your background, into military service and things like that. But really, to just jump right in, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like being the Secretary of Veteran and Military Affairs for the state of Oklahoma?
Well, it is my fourth career. I have been terribly unsuccessful at retirement. I retired from military, retired from Boeing. We had a consulting company. I retired from that. And I was about 2 months from a real retirement, and I got a call from the recruiter from the governor's office offering me
The call.
The
call. Corbin?
There
it is.
The offer.
So everybody we've had on so far, that like all
That's
the
a Corbin
secretaries.
story.
And then I got the call, right?
Yeah.
So sorry, I interrupted, but you got the call from Corbin.
Right. So I told him, I said I wasn't interested, that I'd been promising my wife that I was going to retire. And he said, well, why don't you call her? And I said, why don't you call her? And he said, no, I'm not going to call your wife. And so I called her, and she said, this is perfect. It's perfect for you. So I called him back and said, okay. So I went through all the interview process. The last interview was with the governor in his kitchen at the mansion. And I thought, yeah, this is...
So what was it about it that she said, why was it perfect?
She knew I wasn't going to retire.
Okay.
She is not worried about me dying on the job. She's worried about me pushing the grocery cart through Crest grocery store, wanting to pick out oyster sauce or something.
So it sounds like she wants to keep you busy.
She wants to keep me busy and out of her way.
I found the perfect role for you.
Yeah, she runs things, and she just gives me little things to do. And I mean, I'd have been assigned a flower bed on the north side of the house, and I didn't really want to do it.
So you moved into the Secretary of Veteran Affairs here at the state of Oklahoma. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing. You've obviously been working with Joel Kinsel a lot, with ODVA over there. What sort of things are being done right now to work for Oklahoma veterans?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So if you know much about our governor, I'm sure you do, he's a businessman.
Yeah.
So he wants us to have business goals, and coming out of Boeing, I kind of understand that.
Right.
So he wanted us to have solid goals, that we establish results that we wanted to work towards, and then report on those results. So that's kind of the way we came about it. And Joel was new as the director of ODVA, Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs, and I was the new secretary. So we came up with what we think is 3 good goals. And they are, number one is to support the transition from the military career to the civilian career. The education, the training, the preparing them for interviews, helping them with resumes, working with hiring fairs, and getting them on a job. The veteran is the employee of choice in Oklahoma. So that was our number one goal. Number 2 is we operate 7 veteran centers around the state, and these are extended care facilities to create a home-like environment for these veterans in these veteran centers. Now, home-like is kind of a stretch, but we wanted to make it as home-like as we could, considering the conditions. So it's how we maintain them, how we operate them, how we modernize them.
Right.
So that was our second goal. Part of the modernization, we just did a groundbreaking over at Salisaw for a new veteran center, and we'll close the one at Tallahena, which is kind of being underutilized.
So is that something you walked into the job and you immediately saw, there's some upgrades that need to happen here in these facilities?
Yeah. So one of the first things I look for is, what's your strategic plan?
Okay.
So I've got 5 little steps I go through. What's your vision? In other words, what is the why of what you're doing?
Okay.
What is the why? That's the motivator.
Right.
What is the what you're doing? What is the how you're doing it? What are the results you're producing? And how do you sustain and grow it? So I just didn't see those things. And so Joel and I sat down and put together some ideas on what do we think is the main, what do we want as a vision? What do we see as the end state? We did that. What do we see as the plan for accomplishing the end state? So we came up with these 3 things. support the transition from military to civilian career, maintain, operate, and modernize our veteran centers, and our third one's common, omnipotent, all-over goal was to support our veterans. Under support, we saw prevention of suicide. Under our goal, under our support, we supporting in veterans that are incarcerated, and preventing incarceration for veterans that we can get into veteran treatment course.
Right.
And our incarceration issue is not to make prison life any better. This isn't about taking a model airplanes to build. This is about working with them to transition them from someday they will get outside the fence, outside the walls. How do we help that transition so that we get them out and they become a useful member of society?
That's cool.
And don't repeat. So we have, it's called VARP. It's Veteran Avoidance, Recovery, and Redeployment Program.
So one thing I really love about what you're talking about here, General, that actually takes me back to our episode we did with Sarah Stitt, even, where she talked a lot about mental health, and that's a big passion of hers. But in order for us to excel in that as a state, it takes cross collaboration to be able to do this. A lot of what you're talking about DOC, ODVA, a bunch of different organizations working together to make this happen, right?
Right. Well, it just takes suicide prevention.
Yeah.
We're working with a lot of state agencies, a lot of nonprofits. Suicide is a mental problem. It is a neck up decision to take your life because situations are so bad you can't tolerate them. So that's a mental health. That's a mental process breakdown.
Right.
So how do we get in and find ways that we can stop that mental health process going down a road that's going to end up in your physical destruction of your life?
Right.
So how do we do that? So we believe that one of the core things is good mental health intervention. But surprisingly enough, when the system that will allow us to find out about it is all post-mortem for the most part. We got to move that to the front end of this thing and be proactive versus reactive. But even in a post-mortem situation where you have a veteran, sometimes it takes us months to even find out that this is a veteran because of the lag time in a time that some suicide is found, getting them through the system, getting releasability, that this is what caused this person to lose their lives. Whereas if it was a normal death, it doesn't take that long. But it's that veteran certification thing. And then they've got all kinds of levels of veterans. So we've tried to eliminate the problem of, the federal definition of a veteran is someone who has served beyond training. Right. Ours is simple. Did you serve? Period. Did you serve? Did you serve as a guardsman and you went as far as Camp Gruber? Or did you serve as an active duty member and you traveled around the world? Right. Did you serve is the only question we want to ask.
So how do you guys define success at the VA these days? Like in terms of the initiatives that you and Director Kinzel have going, do you guys have I know the governor's real big on dashboards, things of that nature, but even internally, is there an initiative or a metric that you would say that you guys monitor a lot to say we know we're making an impact, or feedback loops or something of that nature?
We do. In fact, if you've ever read the book Traction, so rocks, we have rocks that we report, and Sarah Lane, who is the deputy director of ODVA, her and I work together every month, and we go through our rocks, and it says we'll get certain done by a certain date, and we track and see what we're doing, and what are those elements that tell us we're moving in the right direction. That's all part of the execution after you've got the vision and the plan and the resources.
The VTO,
How do you measure yourself against execution?
That's
are
good.
you moving the needle?
Right.
Or do you just see the needle? So we do that. We have certain metrics that we want to meet about veteran employment. We have certain metrics we want to meet about. One of the things we've been, it's not producing results yet because it have to mature. But we have a state challenge out of the governor for suicide prevention. We have mayor's challenges in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Lawton. 88% of the veterans live along this I-44 corridor. So we want to be able to establish good, strong points of contact, main operating bases in those 3 centers, and then expand out from that.
Okay.
Through the mayors and through others that will help us go after. So we have a new organizations come in to Lawton, Cohen Veteran Center. They're a mental health. They're funded by a hedge fund back east, someplace in the New England area.
Right.
They have hooked up with another mental health organization in the state of Oklahoma, Red Rock.
Yeah.
And they form a statewide partnership. So using that, using engagement, faith-based organizations,
Right.
nonprofit organizations that will help with mental health, and what we say is you got to get them on a pathway to hope. And we have hundreds of veteran support organizations across the state.
Right.
So let's call them islands of excellence. So that's an island of excellence. This is an island of excellence. But what do you see there? It's a gap. So how do we close the gaps in the islands of excellence? Because when a veteran gets in a gap, that's where suicide happens. Because there's not something to hang on to.
Right.
It's you're sinking into despair.
So did you see that initially? You mentioned some of the veterans who have gone 20 years since retiring from the military and then actually taking services. Would you qualify that as a gap between?
Absolutely.
Almost like a communication
Absolutely.
gap. That's interesting.
So
Okay.
imagine that the veteran is on a spectrum of life.
Right.
And it kind of begins with you raising your hand and you swear you'll support and defend the Constitution. That's the first step of it. The last step for the veteran is the bugle and the folded flag and the hole in the ground. Okay,
Right.
so that's kind of where it ends for the veteran. But the veteran's family supersedes that. So as long as the veteran's family has got some way they can honor their veteran by coming to a veteran's cemetery
Right.
and seeing their veteran and seeing someone stick a flag there next week.
You bring up something really interesting I want to ask you about. ODVA, do they do anything to, and I know the answer is yes, but to support veteran families as well as the individual veteran?
Yes,
Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
So it's really a kind of an official thing.
Okay.
And it has to do with the level of disability that a veteran may have passed away with.
Okay.
And there are certain programs that you can move into that.
Right.
But that's where the nonprofits come in.
Wow, okay.
So beyond what the government can do as a process based upon a level of disability for the surviving family, the nonprofits are where they kind of step in and support the veterans' families. But that's very sensitive to that. We're dealing with one right now of a former veteran that had PTSD, became a state policeman. We lost him, and how we taken care of his spouse. So,
have there been any tie-ins to the governor's initiative for Be a Neighbor, for example?
yes, absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, of course. A lot of that has to do with mental health and the assistance to others. How do you get people to join hands and fill in that gap?
Right.
So on this continuum, from the time you raise your hand, so there's your military service. The next phase of life is the transition from the military to employment. And then you're employed, and somewhere along there you want to go in and get your GI Bill so you can advance your education training. When you finish with your employment, somewhere in there you want to go in and see the benefits and make sure that if you've got a disability from the military, that's getting addressed. We want you to join something like the American Legion, the VFW. And then whenever if you qualify and the conditions are there, we can get you into a veteran center, and then at some point in it is still life. They are going to bury you, and we're going to celebrate your life, and then your family's going to have a place to come and remember you.
Man, that's really cool.
We got I think it was a $7.9 million grant to build Oklahoma's first veterans cemetery.
Really?
Down at Ardmore, so that honoring the veteran now can continue.
Right.
After the veteran's life, their family can continue to honor, and we can have a place to go and honor veterans.
That's
like
cool.
on
Which is
Veterans Day.
different because there's a national museum in Fort Gibson, right?
Yeah, a
not
national
museum,
cemetery.
right?
Right.
Because my dad's there.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening, I mean, that may have loved ones.
Yeah.
So this will be Oklahoma's first.
This is Oklahoma's first veteran cemetery, Oklahoma's
cool.
state veteran cemetery.
Do you find often, because I know there's a lot of senators and House members. Senator Simpson comes to mind. He's a former
Absolutely.
veteran. Can you
I know.
talk?
I know.
How does that relationship work? Do you utilize the Senate and the House and the legislature and kind of carrying the flag on some stuff?
Absolutely. Joel Kinstel, since you've used his name a couple of times, he's a former House legislative and parliamentarian. So Joel understands the process of getting bills through the House and the Senate. So several of them that we have looked at that Joel and Sarah, both of them are attorneys, have been able to get through there. So there's a Veterans Caucus that is made up of House and Senate members. And before I could be confirmed by the Senate, Veterans Caucus had to kind of raise their hands. So the day I went before the Veterans Caucus to speak to them, the governor walks in. So total surprise to them, but the governor basically said, this is my guy, but he's not going to get confirmed until you feel like he's the right guy. So I really appreciate the governor doing it. And the governor recognizing that this needed to have the House and Senate Veteran Caucus a
100%,
blessing from both. So, yes, Senator Racino.
Yes,
Representative West, probably.
Absolutely. Representative Kennedy on the House side, absolutely.
So they're all strong, and they're all veterans.
Yes, absolutely.
And they really are very supportive of
General,
what we do.
as we said before, this is a very special episode for Steve and I. It's a kind of a special edition. It's our Veterans Day episode. First off, I want to thank you for all you're doing, but also want to give the opportunity for a lot of our viewers that may be looking for opportunities to help out and serve and really just support veterans. So can you kind of give us a quick run through of how either nonprofits or companies or just your average Joe, a guy on the street can help to support your cause of what you're doing?
What's the easiest way they want to get involved?
Right.
Yeah. I'll tell you, at the simplest level, you see a veteran walk through an airport, go pat him on the back. Just that simple. When I came home from Vietnam the first time, people did not want to sit next to me on the airplane. They asked to be moved because I was a returning soldier from Vietnam. The second time, we were told to change the civilian clothes or don't go to the airport. How do you get home if you don't go to the airport? And why should I have to go buy another set of clothes just so I can get home? That's ridiculous. I wear this uniform home. So that's changed so much. So it started at the simplest level. You see a veteran walking through the airport, they're either going to war or they're probably coming home from war, and just go say something to them. So make them feel good about a decision that they've made, that they've just spent maybe a year away from their family, and make them feel good about the fact that they made that decision to do that.
Well, that's something anybody,
absolutely,
every place can do.
Absolutely. Within most churches, they have veteran support groups. ODVA certainly is always looking for volunteers. We always do things for our veterans, and it's simple things like Fort Sill, Lawton, very, very, as you would well know, military veteran support. The Veterans Center down there, these people have been locked in there since March. They've organized parades, and now about every month or so, the last time they had 70-something vehicles drive around the center. And it's fire trucks, and it's police cars, and it's vehicles from Fort Sill, and it's the Corvette Club, and it's the Patriot Riders. Those kind of. So there's lots and lots and lots of opportunities out there. So, tell them to contact me. I'll find some place that they can go. But churches, do something. Individuals, an individual. Work with ODVA. ODVA has always got programs we're looking at. So there's lots of opportunities for. New View, Oklahoma. Have you ever heard of New View, Oklahoma?
I don't think I have.
Sight impaired. So New View does a training program. They actually have employees because they do a manufacturing center. They have a clinic. They work from infant to old age. And it's all about dealing with the handicap of sight impairment. We have a big veterans program. And let's see, on the 10th, teamed up with Boeing, my old employers, and we're going to go out and deliver meals to homebound veterans. And so Boeing is being a big sponsor.
That's
so
awesome.
Things working with New View, and New View, Oklahoma is always looking for veteran volunteers to work with our veterans.
Well, that's cool. So veteran out there, what's great is the opportunities there for both the veterans. You see the opportunities for help if you need anything like that. That just also your everyday Oklahoman that is looking
Yep.
for help. Yeah.
And we really want to leverage the American Legion, the VFW, all these veteran service clubs. So give them a way that you can help us help veterans more than just playing bingo, and I know they do a lot more than that.
Right.
But get them out there and get them engaged. And because they represent the filling of that gap between these two islands of excellence, they can fill that gap.
Wow.
So if we can do that, and then one of the other things that we're really excited about is I call it the Google map, the Google muffler map. If you've got a problem with your muffler and you Google it, Google sends you a half dozen different muffler dealerships and the directions, the phone number, the website, everything about them. So what we're doing is working that same thing for veteran support organizations.
Our team's it has been helping partnering with ODV on this project. So I think the page is called, is it Valor? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about this, because this is an amazing new thing that ODVA is working on.
It's a resource map. You'll go in, and we're going to hang it on various websites. All the veteran websites will have a link on there.
Right.
And you go in and you click on that link, and it comes up and it asks you the question, what kind of service or support do you need? GI Bill.
Right.
How much? What kind of radius from where you live? 50 miles. And it shows you all the different organizations that'll have their website, their phone number, just like if you were going to get your muffler repaired.
That's amazing. And, we may in this video we'll link this new website down at the bottom of our video. But really, if you're a veteran looking for some support or services, this is going to be an amazing new tool available to everybody.
Yeah.
So.
And it was done by a nonprofit, by veterans working within a nonprofit.
That's awesome.
It is. It's just awesome. And they said, hey, we need to do this. We'll just do it ourselves. We're not going to go hire some contractor.
Yeah.
We'll just do it ourselves.
Right.
So every organization has got some really smart IT people. We just happen to find a genius. So.
Let's go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, it worked out really well.
I'm going to get him to help me with my cell phone. I got a new iPhone that I can't get it to talk to my car, so I'll give him a call. Veteran in need.
Well, General, seriously, thank you so much for the service, but also for what you're doing for Oklahoma. This is an area that you and Joel are just making huge impacts for our state, for veterans in our state. So thank you for your service in both military and after in your veteran life and supporting other veterans.
Yeah.
So
well, and then I've got another side of my hat that's the military side.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So I have Fort Sill and Altus and Vance and McAllister. We make the best bombs in the world. Just ask our enemy. So. I just really am. I'm having a great time.
Well, your wife doesn't have to worry about you being busy.
That's exactly right.
In fact, I left the house about 8 o'clock this morning, and I keep calling her and telling her, well, I'm going to the next meeting. She said, I thought you were going to come home and eat lunch. I said, didn't have time.
Oh, you got to tell you're doing big stuff. You're coming on the Get Stuff Done podcast, right? This is big time.
Oh yeah. She knows that talking is one of my things I really love to do.
Oh, it's perfect.
Except it's getting more and more difficult because people keep telling me to be brief. If you said, where did you park your car? I can do that brief. But if it said, why did you park there? Then you better text the babysitter. We'll be here for a while. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you again, sir, and thank you guys for listening at home. Happy Veterans Day to everybody. And I guess we'll see you soon on the next episode of the Get Stuff Done podcast. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.